week 1 is in the other section, or if one of you could just email me and remind me, I'll copy it. I'm sure you can copy from one playlist to another. Okay, so I have my idle open here. So keep in mind, hopefully everybody has Python installed. You can work in idle, you can write your programs here, you can do interactive shelling here, or you can also run your programs at the command line or do interactive commands also on the command line, whatever works for you. I'll try to do both, but just because working in an integrated environment is easier, I tend to work in an environment. That's how it really goes. But anytime stop me, and if you're working on the command line, I'll show it to you how to do in the command line. Okay, so we are going to learn a third data type today. So we talked about strings and we talked about numbers last week. There is another type in Python and in many programming languages, in all programming languages, I should say, which is called the Boolean type. Keep in mind that programming was created to make it so that human repetitive work could be replaced by a program. So all that we do in our daily life, right? All that we do, like we make decisions. Oh, it's raining today. Should I carry an umbrella, right? Or while Anju is talking, let me listen to her. All decisions that we make in our life, all repetitive jobs that we do in our life, all kind of data that we use in our life, it had to be converted into programming languages. So we do use numbers, so there were number types. We do use text all the time, so there is the string type. And then we do say something like, are you sick today? And your answer is yes or no. Did you understand what I taught today? Your answer would be yes or no. So the third data type that is available is the Boolean data type. It's called the Boolean data type, mostly known by the same name in all languages, sometimes bool and sometimes boolean. It can only take two values. With strings, unlimited. With numbers, we know the rules, right? A Boolean data type or a Boolean data variable can only take two values, true or false, nothing else. There is nothing else for a Boolean data type. So you'll say, oh, how do I declare it? Remember we talked about variables last week. I said a variable can be created. We know the rules. We could use letters and digits. And what was allowed in, I think an underscore was allowed. And it couldn't start with a number in Python. So you could create a Boolean variable. You could give it a value of true or false, nothing else. And then you could ask questions of it. What is inside you? Are you true? Are you false? And so on. So very simple. So let's take a Boolean variable today. So here is the interactive shell. I'm going to declare a variable or to define a variable. And in Python, which is a loosely typed language, all you have to do is you just say the name of the variable. You use the assignment operator and assign it a value, right? And if you would like to change its type from a number to Boolean or vice versa, take string, we can do it in Python. It's not a strictly typed language, right? So here, I'm going to take a variable called flag. You can call it anything you like. I'm going to use my assignment operator. Again, the space before the assignment and after the assignment operator is just a habit, because readability is important for programmers, not for the machine, but for programmers, right? And we read each other's programs. We are always working with programmers, so we need some neatness in our code. So how do you assign a Boolean value to a variable? You go true. Please notice it starts with a capital T. It has to be spelled this way. Notice it's gone orange. So it kind of gives you a clue. Oh, something is different. My variable flag is in black, but my true value is in orange. Why is that so? So it is a reserved. It's a reserved constant. You could call it a constant, a Boolean constant. You have to, bless you, you have to start with a capital T, and it has to be spelled this way. So now your variable is true, right? The other value you could give to it is false, nothing else. So now if you would like to see, oh, what are you? What's your value, right? So you're asking what's inside you, and it will tell you that I am a variable that is true. You say, are these variables useful? What do I do with such kind of variables that can take a value true, false? We'll talk about it when we make decision-making statements today, when we learn about decision-making statements, right? So something like, if it is raining, carry an umbrella. So if it is raining, true, carry an umbrella. If it is raining, false, do not carry an umbrella. If 5 is greater than 7, then subtract 5 from 7, otherwise versa, right? You could be making all kind of Boolean statements. And the other value that a variable can take, or a Boolean variable can take, is false. Starts with a Starts with a capital F, and that's how it is said. These are the only two Boolean constants, nothing else, true and false. So now if you say, oh, what's the value in flag? That's what it is. Okay? That's all it can be. Now, so if we have Boolean variables, how do we use them? That's our next question. So let's try to write a small program. So that's a Boolean variable, so that you know. So now let's try to write a small program in which we work with decision-making statements. And when I work with decision-making statements, we'll talk about relational operators and Boolean operators today, and simple conditions and compound conditions. Okay, so please open up your editor. Is that clear? So this is your third type of variable. We know the two Boolean constants, the two Boolean literals or constants, and variable names. Follow the rule. Letters, digits, underscore cannot start with the digit. Okay, so let's go to start a new file. And if I can remember where I was saving your file, I'll do that. All your programs, whether they are mini labs, whether they are take-home assignments, exams, anything, at the minimum must have your name, date, and the purpose at the head. And again, if you can't remember how to put them, where was it? Where I could configure. There it is. Oh, 18 seems to be small, right? Let's try 20. Okay, so your name, the date, and those are comments. Again, keep in mind, all comments are completely ignored by the translator or the compiler or the interpreter, as it is called in Python. Python is a language that uses an interpreter. We say it is an interpreter language. Every line of code that you write, your code could be hundreds of lines. It takes one line at a time, converts it into machine language, and then executes, sees, oh, everything is okay. Yes, then goes to the next line. Yes, then goes to the next line. Otherwise, it stops wherever it finds an error. So it could either be a compiler or an interpreter, and Python is an interpreted language, what we are doing. Okay. So today's date, whatever it is, May 15th. And the purpose of the program, you may not know the purpose of the program before you even start, but if it is an assignment, you know exactly what it is. And if not, that you can always fill up afterwards. But as you know, today we are learning about Boolean variables, and we are learning about relational and Boolean operators and the if statement. That's what I'm doing, right? And they're called relational and Boolean operators. Okay, so there should be some kind of and do you see something which says we can just go to the next line, general? At start, format, context lines, automatic return is what I'm looking for. Initial window size, completion. That's only fonts and tabs, so it can be here. Highlights doesn't make sense to be here. Keys could be, no, these are keys that are already defined. General is the most one. Format, prompt to save, time match, parent match style. Don't see it here. Anything where else it could be? Not in files, in edit, find, cut, undo, expand word. Oh, show call tips surrounding parents, find, select all, indent, maybe indent, didn't, comment out, uncomment, tabify, toggle tabs, strip trailing white space. No, run would not be. Code context, no, shouldn't be. Code context, so I think will be a window that will come up. Yep, that's what it is, a window that will come up. This is a small window where you can do small work in. So just so that, because it came up, there was a code context here. Code context means you can do stuff in this small window in a program in the editor also. Well, seems like I'll have to do it myself then. It's a simple thing. It should just be, it should be something somewhere. Okay, so let's save this. And as you know, and I've told you that you should be saving somewhere you can find them. I'm not sure where you are saving it, but remember where you are saving your programs. So Python, I think I created, there you are, Tuesday section. And again, I'll call it program 2, and that's just me so that I can keep track of how I'm working. And what should we call it? Decisions today. Okay, right? So that's the minimum that I require from you. Minimum, I'm saying, at the head of my program. Now, let's talk about a few things. So if statement is what will help us to learn about Boolean variables, relational and Boolean operators. So let's start and work a little. Now, what is a decision-making statement? A decision-making statement called the if or the if-else or elif, also there are different kind of flavors of it, is a statement that allows you to make a decision, and depending upon the condition that you're checking, whether it's true or false, you could do one or the other. So you may only say, if it is raining, carry an umbrella. Doesn't have any else. Or you could say, if it is raining, carry an umbrella, else don't bother. So you could have an else with it. Or you could say, if it is raining, carry an umbrella. Else, if it is snowing, wear your snow boots. Else, if it is sunny, wear a t-shirt, you know. So you could have more and more and more of conditions. So we'll go slow, one by one. We'll write small statements first, and then we'll try to make conditions that are compound. You could compound conditions, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let's write a very simple statement. I'm going to say if. So the if statement is just if. That's what it's called in Python. So what you would like to do in Python is you would like to go if, and then we'll go more than once. Okay, so now the condition. So I'll go a little simple first. I'll try to work with numbers because numbers are the easiest to understand. So you have two numbers and you want to find out which one is the bigger number. So you'll say, oh, just two hard-coded numbers? No, you could always take your input from the user. So let's try that. So let's try, because you've done stuff, I'll kind of work with it. So I'm going to use the input function, if you remember from last week, and I'm going to put it in number 1, and I'm going to assign it a value. And since I know that input takes a number, I'm going to convert it into an int right away. So please put comments, input or accept, whatever you would like to say, accept two integers from the user, right? So I'm going to write my input function, and I'm nesting. Notice how I'm nesting my functions. My input function is inside my int function, which is perfectly fine. Input will take something, and then we will convert it into an int and save it in number 1. So you can do things together. You don't have to do one line at a time if you know what you're doing. And keep in mind, prompts were important. So I'll say something like, please input number 1. Oops. So it's basically asking the user of what you want to do, right? So the first number will go into number 1. You could have called your variable whatever you like. Really doesn't matter. I chose to do with number 1. Okay, let's go and start doing number 2. Instead of saying please, I just said accept two integers from the user, and you can copy and paste. And of course, change the message. So copying and pasting is not bad, but remember, when you copy and paste, use your brains, right? So the input function from last week, if you can't remember, it's always a good idea to keep your second program open. I mean, I'm not saying you have to open it, but you can always open your program. This is the greeting program we did last week. And you'll say, oh, yeah, we did that. We did the input function. We know what to do, how to assign a value. You will know these are user variable names. Remember, whenever there was a more than one words, I use the underscore. So you know how to work with it. You know the int function which converts a variable into int. So you can always keep it open just in case. But as you go on, it will become better. So there it is. So please notice my parentheses. There is one pair of parentheses for the input function, and there is one pair of parentheses for the int function. Functions may or may not need parameters. So we give them arguments. You may have no parameters, one parameter, more than one. It will depend upon the function you are using. You can combine functions as I have done here. I've kind of nested my functions and nothing stops me. I can do that, right? Now let's do the if statements. So I'm now going to check, or you can say print or check, whatever. You can say check the relation between the integers. Now you'll say, what is this relation? What a relation between two numbers? Two numbers can either be equal, or the first number can be more than the second number, or the first number can be less than the second number. That's what relation means, right? So that's what the relation is. Check the relation between the numbers. You can say equality, inequality, higher, lower, whatever. I could simply check whether they're equal or not to keep it simple, right? So let's start that with the simplest. Are the numbers equal, right? Are they equal or are they unequal? So you could call them equal or unequal. We'll go one by one. Okay, so now let's see, how do we do that? So we have that if statement, and the if statement will simply do what it is. It will simply do an if, like normal if. So what do you want to check? You want to check whether the two numbers that you've read are equal or unequal. Oh, new operator. You are seeing a new operator. You're seeing two equal signs. This is the equality operator on your list of relational operators. So you have relational operators. So we did arithmetic operators last week, and you should know their names. You should know what they are called. Okay, so you remember, hopefully you remember your arithmetic operators from last week. You're seeing your first relational operator. They're called relational operators because you're trying to find the relationship between two operands, right? So these are called operands. Number one and number two are called operands, and the two equal sign is the equality operator. So what are you saying? Like normal English, you're saying, are they equal or are they unequal? So if there is an equality, then there is a not equality also. And that's the symbol for not equal. So you could do either. You could use the equal sign and say, oh, are they equal? I'll say it. Or you could use the non-equality sign or inequality sign and say they're not equal. Now the syntax in Python is you write your if statement and you then put a semicolon, right? So this is you're saying that I'm going to check if my two numbers are equal. And I have to be careful because I teach so many languages, so I have to always remember that I'm doing my job right. Syntax can be different. Okay, now, how do you say that what is the body of my if statement, right? Also called the if block. So body, you will say, what body? Maybe you want to do a few things. So if something is true, I want to do job number 1, job number 2, job number 3. I want to do a few things. Or I only want to do a statement. But how do you tell Python that one or more than one statements together make up the if body or the if clause is like this? You indent your code. So here is where indentation is. As soon as you press enter, you will notice how the cursor has moved by 4 positions. Now, is it a rule that it is 4? No, the indentation in this idle has been set to 4. When I was looking at the idle options, if you had noticed, it said indent is 4. You can reduce it if you like to 2. Or 1 will do whatever, but you have to indent your code. And since it saw the if statement and you put a colon, the editor was smart enough, when you did an enter, it went automatically indented your code. So do not go back to start from column number 1. Don't. If you would like to start from column number 2, that's okay. But the general is 4 and you can change it at any time, right? But indentation needs to be done. So now you write your statement. So what do I want to do? I'm doing a very simple thing here. All I'm doing is checking whether the numbers are equal. I want to print a statement. So I'm going to use the print function. I'm going to use the print function, and the print function, I can simply say the two numbers are equal. And that's it. But now comes the thing, a message on the screen which says the two numbers are equal. Which two numbers is she talking about? Like, what are the two numbers she's talking about? So a good message would be, show the number 1, show the number 2, and say whether they are equal or unequal. Again, so you have to be very careful. When you take input, please see that you have good prompt messages. When you show output, please see that you have good print messages. Is it important? Yes, it is important. It is very important, right? So the class is at 8 a.m. Which class am I talking about? It could be simply, I could say the class with Anju is at 8 a.m. But what if Anju is teaching the 2 courses? Right? So it is important how you give your output. So now, so I could simply say the numbers are equal. And my job is done. But which 2 numbers? No clue. Right? No clue at all. Let's see how I will improve it. So let's say this program runs. So I've introduced you to the 2 operators, the relational operators, the equal to, and in a minute I'll introduce you to not equal, and it's not a big job at all. It's just a different sign. Save your program and run it. Do an F5. So what have you learned? The if statement, and rule number 2, indentation in Python is important. It tells you where the if is beginning and where it is ending. And you'll say, what if I want to now write, I want to come back, I want to finish my if statement, it's done, if block. Then all you do is you come back to your column number 1, and just to show you. So that's indentation. And there is only one single statement inside the if body, or the if clause as it is called in Python, and that is that line that I've written, the print statement. So how do you use indentation? Whenever you want to block together set of statements or even a single statement, you indent your code and they all go together in the same indentation. If you want to do something inside it, you indent it further. And then when you want to come out of the block, you go back to wherever your blocking is. So this is one simple statement, but you could have nested blocks, nested if statements, and so on. We'll do it as the time comes. So that should run. What should it say? It should ask you for 2 numbers. The 2 numbers are, please input the first number. I've said you could say integer, because how does the user know? They could enter a float. Let's see how it works. What does it do in float? If you remember, I'm trying to convert, I'm taking something 12.5 and I'm trying to convert it into an int. Okay, so let's run this. So it says input the first number. Let me try to input 12.5 just for the heck of it. I have an error. Why? It's taken 12.5. There's nothing wrong. You said give me a number, I gave you a number. Then it tried to convert it into an int, but 12.5 is not an int. Remember, it's a float. So it gave you an error. And if you try to read the error, there it is. It says value error. It tells you at what line it is occurring, and it tells you and it kind of shows you the line. And it says invalid literal. Literal means the constant you've given it, the value you've given. That's what a literal is for int function with base 10. Base 10, the decimal number system that we use, it's called base 10. It says 12.5 is not a valid literal for the int function. That's what it is trying to say. So you should know how to read it. Okay, so let's go back again. I'll close this, the greeting one, because I don't need it. But anyway, you could always keep it open. And let's try to do. So what could be a better thing? It would be better that instead of saying please input the first number, we'll say please input the first integer. Now, a common person, a common user doesn't understand what an integer is. Programmers do, but maybe not a common integer. You'd say, so what do I do? You don't want me to use integer. You could say a whole number. But again, a whole number may not make a lot of sense to everybody. But your job is still to do things that make some sense. So you just can't leave it, oh, because it doesn't make sense to the common user, I'm not even going to try. So instead of saying number, I'll just say a whole number, because most users know it. But again, we have no clue about our users. So instead of using integer, which definitely is a computer term, it is more to do with mathematicians or programmers, I just say please input the first whole number, please input the second whole number. You could even say please input the first number cannot contain a fractional part. Again, it really depends on who is your audience. So let's try it. So let's try it good now. Okay, so please input the first number. It's my first whole number. I can input a negative number also. And it says goodbye. But it doesn't tell me that they're equal or unequal. It doesn't tell me anything. You'll say, so what? Because I didn't tell it to say anything if they were unequal, right? I didn't tell it to say anything if they were unequal. So let's go back again. And that's why running on the command line is easier. You don't have to keep going back. So all I said if they were equal or unequal. So let's try to run again. And now I'm going to do a little, show you that it works. So both my numbers are 5 now. And it says, oh, the numbers are equal. And it makes sense. But there was no message when they were unequal. You'll say, that's perfectly fine. I can see the two numbers you gave me. It says the numbers are equal. What were you talking about? Show me the numbers. I can see them right away. But keep in mind, because this is just doing it straight. Like I'm just showing you. What if you cleared the screen first, or you were doing some GUI or whatever, and you wanted to just show the answer maybe in a dialog box or something? Then the numbers are equal will make no sense at all to anybody who doesn't know what the two numbers were in. You say, don't you remember? You just input 5 and 5. Don't assume anything. The user is the most stupid person on earth, right? You have to take them by their hand and by their finger and tell them everything. So outputs must be clear. And we know how to do that. We learned it last week. So what do? Which two numbers are equal? The two numbers that we were talking about last week, okay? So the numbers will concatenate it. And now the two numbers I'll have to convert back my number 1 into string. Why? I hope you remember, because concatenation, everything has to be strings. So I'll stop my message here. I'll input the first number. I'll convert it back into string because I can show an integer. I'll use my concatenation operator again. I'll again say and notice how I'm kind of making it neat because I know I'll need blanks. Then I'll show my second number. I'll say are equal. Now it really doesn't matter whether you see, whether you remember what you input or whether you don't remember what you input. It will say the numbers, this and this are equal. Complete sense to any common user, right? So the numbers 5 and 5 are equal. The numbers 7 and 7 are equal. The numbers -7 and 7 are equal. You'll say, oh, that's fine. But the message will become better when I also show the else. So let's save it and let's run it again. Okay, so my first number is 5, my second number is 5, and now see it says the numbers 5 and 5 are equal. Much more sense? So don't assume this is the input that was given by the user, right? Don't assume that the user remembers what he or she did. No assumptions have to be made about the user at all. Your input should have proper prompt messages, and your output must have complete messages. Just everything should be neat, clean, and complete. That is very important, because that's how it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't know what's going on in the world. Now, so that makes sense? Is it making sense? Okay, guys, were you walking to work, to school, or were you driving from Toronto? Where were you? It's 8:35, right? Which means 35 minutes later than the class. Let me make it very clear to everybody. The class starts at 8. 8:05 maximum. Otherwise, don't come to my class. It disturbs me and it disturbs everybody else who take the effort to come to class on time. Whether I can understand sometimes, right? I can, but 35 minutes late. So were you walking to work? Can I know? Do you walk to school? Yes. So that means you started late. Not in future, please. Okay? Please keep in mind. Join. Please maintain discipline in my class. Attendance is not necessary. Yes, there are in-class assignments. If you want to do them, you have to be in class on time. If attending class is important for you, then you will be here on time. Assignments or no assignments. And that's how it works. If you would like not to attend classes, please join an online course. I'm sure there will be many online courses. But I take the effort, I may take the time to come on time, and I expect the same from you. Otherwise, don't come. That's fine. I won't miss you. I miss students who are serious, but if you're not serious, then that's fine by me. Okay, so now we know the if statement. The output was good enough. Inputs were taken with prompts, but something was missing. When the numbers were unequal, I had no message on the screen. So the user is left with a blank screen, or you could say with no answer. So you'll say, can I make it better? Of course, you can make it better. So with the if statement comes a statement. It's the same statement, but it is a different flavor, and it's called the if-else statement, right? So you could, if you can keep adding to it. So I'm going to keep adding to it. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to write my else. Put a colon and go. And again, notice how my if and else are on the same column. So it tells me that if and else belong together. Yes.
We can just write another.
Yeah, but why would you do that? Right? No, you could. You could say if do this, if do this. I'll tell you what the difference is. I point it out to you. If you have two different if statements, it will execute both the statements. It will look at the first if, execute it, right or wrong. It will go to the second statement and execute it again, right or wrong. With an if else, if the if part is true, it will not bother to check the else part. You've saved time. Execution time is saved. So where do I use independent ifs and where do I use if else, if else's, and so on? You'll have to make a decision. If you're going to check conditions that are mutually exclusive, that means cannot happen together, always use an if else. If you're going to check conditions that are not related, you're checking something, you're checking a person's name, you're checking a person's age, which have no relation to each other, then use independent ifs. Is it important? Yes. From programming point of view, it is important that you're writing an efficient program or you're writing a non-efficient program. Inefficient, not non-efficient, inefficient program. Maybe it doesn't matter to a non-programmer, but you're learning to be programmers now, right? So learn it the right way, so that you know that why is she using an if-else, and as Ken pointed out, why didn't you just write another if statement? Nothing wrong in it, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, and then we'll have to write the equation.
If again, exactly. So you have to write two if statements. That's one thing. You have to write the condition again. That's the other thing. But for me, more important is the inefficiency. Why? Because the computer will check both statements. It will check the first if statement and it will check the second if statement. So will there be marks for efficiency in my assignments? Yes. I will always look for efficient programs. Right? So I'll go with an else and I'll do the same print statement because it's quite same. Again, do an enter and notice how it has indented your code. So idle is doing it. If you were writing your program in Notepad, for example, or TextPad, for example, then you have to be careful that you indent your code properly. That's the rule in Python. It's a rule. It's the only language that I know has this rule of indentation. Otherwise, you'll say in other languages, they either use a begin or an end. They use reserved words, or they use curly brackets. Here is where it begins, here is where it ends. But Python made this rule. Some people like it, some people hate it. Right? But Python made this rule that if you would like to make a statement or a group of statements related together, indent them on the same line. And notice how I have indented my if and else at column number 1. So this tells me that this else belongs to this if. Because as I said, you could have nested if else's, which we will do in a while. Okay? So now instead of saying they are equal, I'll say they are unequal. That's all I'll change in my message. But I've given a message to the user now. So if the numbers are equal, it will say they are equal. And if the numbers are unequal, it will say they are unequal. Job done. Much better. Right? So something that you were seeing before where there was nothing on the screen. So you could think, oh, a blank screen, what does it mean? Has my program crashed? Doesn't it know what it is doing? Did I give a wrong input? What happened? So now there will always be a message. And therefore we use an else with an if. So does an if always have an else? No, not necessarily at all. But if it works and if it is efficient, if it makes more sense, please use an else with an if. Mutually exclusive statements use ifs. Different ifs. One if, second if, third if, fourth if. But if they are related, they are not mutually exclusive, the conditions, only one of them can be true, or one of the three can be true, or one of four can be true, then use if else's. Don't use independent if statements. Let's see if this works. Should work, right? Let's try it again. And let's give our first number and let's give our second number. And now it says 5 and -4 are unequal. Makes more sense. What did I do? I just added an else, right? So that's an if-else. So we've learned about Boolean operators, only 2 of them yet. Sorry, relational operators, only 2 of them yet. But if you can make an educated guess, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. Right? So what can I do? I can compare 2 numbers for equality, for inequality, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. So let's try that now. Shouldn't be difficult at all, right? So let's go back. So the 2 numbers are given, and you could do anything with those 2 numbers. And that's what you will do in your mini lab today at the end of the class, right? So I think messages are going out that there is an in-class assignment and therefore people are coming into class. That's also usually what happens. So I'll never mention in future whether there is an in-class or not. I'll only do it when I have to do it. So that way people who really want to work and they'll be here. But today because of the weather, I just had to change my things. Okay, so now let's try other operators. Not a big job, but let's try. Or let's try nested if sorts. Okay, so here, let's try to write a nested if. So if you can leave this in your code so that you can see it. So I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to just, I saw it somewhere. Comment it, indent, comment out, uncomment, comment out region. I'm just going to comment it. I've commented it because I want to see that we wrote a simple if statement, right? I just want to leave it. Now I want to show you a nested if, an if inside an if. Okay, so that you see that, oh, I could have done this and I could have also done this. And let's try to go and do a few more things. So we'll leave that there. I mean, you could have or you couldn't have, whatever. But I'll keep leaving stuff, and that's how Git will help. I can keep shifting it to Git. Okay, now if the numbers are equal, all I have to say the numbers are equal. But if the numbers are unequal, maybe I want to find out which is bigger and which is smaller. Right? I use another, I can use an if, I can use an else if I like, right? Or I can use an if inside the nested, the else. So there can be a nested if inside it. So let's try that. So there are a few ways you can do it. Let's see how we can use it. So I'm saying if the numbers are equal, that's all I want to do. The numbers are equal. But if the numbers are unequal, I want to kind of go ahead and check who is bigger. Number 1 is bigger or number 1 is smaller, whatever it is. So I have to kind of check another condition. So the numbers are equal, job done. But if the numbers are unequal, I want to do something else. I have to do another condition check. So how do you do it in Python?
Well, because you're using a true false value, which you have a possible outcome of 0 or 1, you don't actually need to write elif for this statement because there's only one other possibility that they're not equal. Yeah. Otherwise, you could write elif numbers not equal, which is your exclamation mark if you're equal, and then inside of your else block or your alternate block, that's where you write a secondary if measuring whether it's greater than or less than.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm going to do now. So I did the equality. If you want to see the non-equality, just for the heck of it, I could do it. But my aim here is to show you an else if now. And that's how you do an else if now. Right? In Python, that's an else if. So you're now going to check another condition. So in English we say else if. In Python, the reserved word is else. Kind of odd, but whatever. I can change the line. Right? So now you want to check who is bigger and who is smaller. So what is your condition now? You want to check another condition here, right? You want to check if the number 1 is greater than number 2, or if number 2 is greater than number 1. Yes.
I guess also add a comment.
Yes.
Check the numbers are, which numbers are greater or
which number is, yes. So that will of course help. So here we were saying check the relation between the numbers equal or unequal. Here we can add a comment, and remember how we add comments? We just add it as if we want to. So let's check which number is greater. I mean, you could do anything. You could say which number is greater. You could say which number is smaller. I mean, it depends what you want to do. Or higher or whatever, right? So I'm doing greater. The logic will be just a little different. I am checking for who's greater, and you're just checking for who's less. It could be anything. Okay, now what do you want to do? Now you want to check which number is greater. So the same thing as if you would say it in English. Is number 1 greater than number 2? That's what you would do in English. Like I would ask you, is number 1 greater than number 2? You will do the same thing. So you will say if my number 1 is greater than number 2. Yes.
We're gonna have to convert them back to integers, right?
No, because when you do the print statement, all you did, how does the function work? It took the number 1 which was an integer, and just for the purpose of it, it converted into a string and wrote it. I didn't assign it back into number.
Okay, so it will reassign
Yes,
as an integer.
exactly. See, yes, good question. Ken is saying you converted them into strings here. Do you have to convert them back into integers? My answer is no. Why? I just converted them to show that if I had done an assignment statement, I had said number 1's new value is string of number 1, then the value has changed. But when I simply say do it, it just does it and shows it to you. But I say do it and save it, then things will change, right? So when I do a print statement and I say string of number 1, I'm calling the function string, I'm passing it the argument number 1, it just converts it and prints it or spits it on the screen. It doesn't save it back into number 1 because I didn't tell it to. When I tell it to do something, it does it. Here I told it to convert it into an integer and save it in int1. I told it, but if not, then it won't on its own, right? Okay, so no, I don't have to because I didn't assign it. So I'll try my best, and I should. I'll comment my code because I expect it from you. And again, just leave, if you like, I mean, it helps. Just see that you leave maybe a couple of lines between quotes. That way it's easier to read. And the purpose is because I and you are reading it, right? Okay, so here, let's do what we were doing. Any questions? Are we okay? So now what am I doing? I'm trying to do an if inside the else. So this was okay. If the numbers were equal, I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to print out the numbers. But if they were not equal, it means the else, I want to do something else. So I want to check another condition. So this is like a nested if. So there is an if inside the else. It's called a nested if. Why? Because you come to the else, and then inside the else you want to do something else. So it's called a nested if. Okay. So now what do we want to do? You want to now check which number is greater. So I just wrote a condition. I said if number 1 is greater than number 2, I could have written it the opposite way. I could have said if number 1 is less than number 2. It depends on how you write. And what do I want to say? I want to say the number I say the number, I show the first number is greater than, and I show the second number. Makes sense? Now the message will come on the screen. 5 is greater than 2, minus 5 is greater than minus 10, and so on and so forth. So I just changed my message. So I've used the relational operator greater than. If I had used less than, then all I would have said the number, and I would have said number 2 is greater than number. So how you do it really depends on you. Right? So I checked for equality. If the numbers were equal, I said they were equal. And if the numbers were unequal, I told you which number was greater. So this is elif, right? It's called an elif. And again, notice the reserved word is elif. The code is indented. And if I wanted to say more statements, I would just indent them together. We'll do more. But for now, this is one statement every time. Should work. Right? Let's see if it works. If the numbers are equal, it should say the numbers are equal. So why did I comment this code? Because I said, okay, let's try to only get one answer at a time, but doesn't mean you have to. You can say the numbers are unequal or equal, and then it can say the numbers are which is greater than 1. So my aim was just to kind of keep the code and just do it in another way. But you don't have to. I mean, you'll say, why did she do that? It's not necessary. It was just me. I just wanted to show you one thing at a time. That's all. So you can always go here and you can always uncomment your region. Okay. So the commenting is just so that you can see one thing at a time. And that's how you will learn. Okay, let's see if it works. Let's save this. So always save your work because we always have to come back to it. So let's save and let's see if it works. Or do we have a problem? Or is it working logically as it is? Okay, let's try. So let's input the first number. We already know that 5 and 5 were working. Okay, so it's still working. The equality is still working, right? Let's go back to the window and let's try to do an F5 again. And let's try now to do a 7, which is my first number. And let's try to do a -2. You can give negative numbers. Nothing stops you from giving negative numbers. Integers can be positive or negative. What should be your answer? Your answer should be that 7 is greater than 2. Which is fine. 7 is greater than 2, -2. Right? Let's try it again. Let's try to give the second number, which is bigger. Okay, so my first number is 5 and my second number is 10. And again, I have no message. Why? Because I don't have an else. Right? So one step at a time. Yes.
If we write as an else, wouldn't it just automatically state that one number is greater than the other, whether or not they are? Because it will give an else to both ifs, right?
Yeah, but notice your code first. What did you do in your code? You said if the number 1 is greater than number 2, I want to print a message.
Okay.
But you never said, what do I want to do otherwise?
Well, you have an if, then an else if.
Yes.
So wouldn't the else apply to both the if and the else at the same time?
Come again. I have an if and I have an else.
Yeah.
Right? But inside that else, I have another if.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no else for this if.
Okay.
So
that first else is the else too.
of the first if. So there is no message again. What do I do now? I need another message. Right? So I want another else. So put it, try it. Now comes the question, where do I put my else? I want to print another message. Where do I put my else? Whose else is it? It is the else of the elif. It is the else of the elif. Right? So let's try it. So what should I do here? I don't know. I'm going to try something. Give me a minute. Just because it's Python and it's a different way. Okay, I'll try both ways. Let's try this way first, and then I think I can do it one more way. Oh, I forgot my colon. If you forget your colon, it doesn't indent automatically. Oops. And I change my message. I have to because what is this else saying? Here you are saying number 1 is greater, but if that's not the rule, they're already not equal, and that's not holding. So the third one is, of course, that means the second number is higher. Right? So let's try that now, whether it works or not. All I did was what? I added another else, just an else. So if you see, there is an if, there is a simple if else, or there is an if else. Right? Let's try that. Let's try that and see if it works. So now let's try the 5 and the 10. And let's see if we have an error or are we okay. Now there's a message. So all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build the logic step by step. So nothing was wrong when it said only equal. But if it didn't tell me they were unequal, I was kind of lost. So I made an error. Then I said, let me try to find out which is the greater number. So if the first number was greater, the message was fine and it made sense. But if the second number was greater, I again wasn't getting a message. And that again didn't make sense to the user. So I added a message. So now you know how to do it. So that's an if statement. So you've seen the relational operator, some relational operators, but I mean, you could always change it. You could change this less to greater to less. You could change this equality to not equality. You can use the greater than equal symbol where you're checking whether it is either greater or equal. You could do that too. And here are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 relational operators. And this condition, this is called a condition. You're checking a condition. And a condition will always result in either a true or a false, nothing else. That's what a Boolean value is, right? So we know how to do simple conditions. The other thing that I was mentioning, and it was just my head, and I just want to check something. I'm trying to see if I can do it another way, which will make, I mean, it's not wrong or right, it's just that it can make more sense, could be to some students, I'm not so sure. Maybe it will make sense to some students. Notice what I've done here. I've just written it a little differently. And maybe it will make more sense. And if it works in Python, which I'm hoping it will, there's nothing. Does it? Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just, I'm just saying, or do I need an language? See, what did I do? Same concept. But look, I just wrote it a little differently, and maybe some of you, it will make more sense. I said if the numbers were equal, so here we can put a comment again. Maybe if you've not seen the elif before in a different language, which is perfectly fine, but maybe you've seen this. So again, look at what I've done. I've said if number 1 is equal to number 2, I say the numbers are equal. Same thing before. Then I have an else to this if, right? But instead of using elif, which is available in Python, we've already checked, I wrote another nested if inside. Now it looks more like a nested if. That's why I was calling it a nested if. There is something inside, so therefore it is a nested if. So inside that else, I have another if statement. So you have two options in Python. You could combine them and write them with elif, because that's available in Python. Not all languages will have it, right? So, but all languages will give you this. So inside the else, I have another if statement. And notice my indentation also. The code inside the else is indented. And this else now is the partner of this thing. And therefore, these two are on the same column, and these two are on the same. It's the same thing. Think of it again this way. You are checking if the two numbers are equal. If the two numbers are equal, you print out a message. Else, you want to do something else. And what did I do? I wrote a nested if inside it. And this is permissible. And it is permissible in all programming languages, which means you can nest to any level that you want. There could be an if inside an if inside an if. The if can have an if, the else can have an if. Both can have nested ifs. One may have. Now this if doesn't have a nested if inside. There is nothing inside it. There is just an if statement. But this else has a nested if inside. Can this if have another if? Of course it can. You can nest to any level as you like. You can nest both in ifs and in elses. Nothing stops. Can you have a question?
Yeah, I was just trying to run it, and I was getting a syntax error.
A syntax error. Let's see what the syntax error could be. Your indentation. That could be rule number 1, or maybe a missing colon. Try that. Let's see. Let me see if mine works. And now it will print the message twice. Guys, remember, because there are two ifs, right? So I didn't comment my code this time.
It was my
Indentation. It could be. If you miss a colon, so indentation is a rule in Python. As I said, some people love it, some people hate it. Because you have to be so careful with indentation. So Python came with indentation, but I don't know of any other language that has indentation as a rule. Which one? C++. Okay. So there we have an example, C++. C didn't have it. So C. But I think C++ you can do the curly brackets. No? Okay. So C didn't have it. So you could use curly brackets. You can use the reserved words begin and end in some languages, but here you have to use indentation. So you have to be very careful of your indentation. And indentation doesn't mean 4 spaces or whatever. Indentation could be just 1 space. Here by default, when I do an enter, then it just indents it by 4. Are you sure, Rick, that indentation is a rule in C++? I can't. Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think so. I mean, I haven't done C++, but I've definitely I haven't heard of it. I don't think it's a rule in C++. It wasn't in C. The C is a low-level language. Operating systems are written in C, for example, right? So it was a low-level language, and then C++. What happened was they imposed object orientation on C, and therefore provided C++. And it's a very rich language to be used for gaming. It's very, and I'm not a gamer at all, so I don't use it. But as far as I can remember, because I mean, though I did it ages back, I don't think indentation is a rule in C++. I don't think so. But definitely it is a rule in Python. Yep, it could be something that you have in mind, but definitely not the C++. It could be maybe C objective. I don't know, but not C++. But our aim is Python. Indentation is a rule in Python. Don't forget that, right? So is it clear what I'm trying to do here? So whatever you like. If you like the elif and it makes more sense to you, sure. If you like this way, and some students like it, and I don't blame you because it makes it more clear, it's up to you. So you could do the elif combination if you like. What is it saving you? One line, kind of. So instead of writing else and if in different lines, you're writing elif together. And that's entirely it. Okay? So we've seen our first else statement. So you could only have an if, you could have an if else, you could have an if elif. All three are possible. And if you just want to kind of say, oh, is only one, can I only have an if without something? You can just do this without an if. And that way, and again, I'll do this so that you can see only an if statement. I'll say check if the numbers are equal. So you needn't have an else statement. You may not sometimes even need it. You can only have an if statement. Nothing stops it. There's nothing wrong in this statement, guys. There's absolutely nothing wrong in this statement. It's a valid if statement. It doesn't have an else. So you could have just an if. You could have an if and an else. You could have an is, else, whatever. Are we okay? So do we know what an if and else if statement is? So again, if you would like to just kind of leave everything now that you understand it. So here I said check if the numbers are equal. Then I say check if the numbers are equal or unequal. Then I say check if the numbers are equal or the greater of the two. So you kind of see it always. And then I say just code it in a different style. Okay, so we've done one job. Now let's go from, so we've learned our arithmetic operators and we've learned our relational operators. And as I said, nothing stops you. You can have as many ifs nested, else if nested inside an if statement. There is no rule to it. Nesting is allowed to anywhere. Now let's see if we can work with compound conditions. So we saw a condition. These are conditions. Number 1 greater than number 2, number 2 equal to number 2. These are simple conditions. They're called simple conditions. If will always have a condition associated with it, right? Else you may not. Now there's another thing. I could, if I wanted, have said else like here, which is very silly, but I could have said just for the heck of it, and you will see that it makes no sense. Some students do it. And I would again like to point out that it is not required. And you will say, oh, why it makes it clear in my head. Guys, it's not the clarity. Okay, for the beginners, maybe clarity, but we don't want to make it inefficient. So check the relation, and this is an overkill. Overkill means you don't need it. I'm calling it an overkill else. Why? You already checked if they were equal. What was the sense of writing if they are not equal? You know what I mean? Like, why are you saying that there are only two possibilities? I'm only checking for these two. I'm saying, are they equal or are they unequal? So if they are equal, I say this, else I print the message. Why am I checking again if it is not equal to number? So is it incorrect? No. But is it perfect? No. So you are just writing extra, unnecessary code. Some students like to do it. Nothing wrong in it, but it's not the most efficient. Now let me say why it's not efficient. One, suppose it checks if number 1 is equal to number 2. It says no, it's not. So it goes to the else part. In the else part, it has to check the condition again. So it's doing extra work. If there was no condition and it was only a print message, that's fine. You are making it check the condition again, though you already checked it. It was already checked in the first statement that are they equal. What is the only possibility that remains? Equal or unequal in this case? I'm not saying, oh, we are checking for higher or greater. I mean, if there was something else, then it wouldn't be an overkill. But in this case, it is an overkill to write the condition. It's an overkill. Therefore, I call it an overkill else. So avoid. So I say avoid overkill. This is an overkill. You're trying to do more than what is required. Therefore, we call it an overkill. It's not required. So again, learn things the right way. Right? Because if you haven't thought about it, that means you're not programming well. So whenever you program, think and program. Okay? So just because it came, I brought it up. Sorry, had to go back, but it's not a big deal and it will work. You can always check. So now you've also seen not equal, just because we did it. Now let's go from simple conditions to compound conditions. So when we want to compound the conditions, they're called compound conditions and we will need Boolean operators for it. There are 3 Boolean operators that are available in Python and also, just for your information, in all other languages also. Now, what are these Boolean operators? Very common. Let's think. Why were they created? I told you, like everything has a reason. Why were numbers created? Why were Boolean? Now we know why Boolean variables exist, because we talk about yes or no all the time, right? We all talk about yes or no. So it had to be programmed. Now, is our life so simple? There's only one condition involved? No, there could be many conditions involved. If I have a class at 8 a.m. and I am a serious student, go to class. So now there are 2 conditions. You're thinking 2. I have a class at 8 and I'm serious about it. I paid for it. Right? I want to learn it. I like Anju. I just hate her because I have to go because she gives in-class assignments. Whatever the reason may be. But there are 2 conditions involved. And there is an and involved. You want this and this. That becomes a compound condition. Right? So, and you can combine any number of conditions as you like. So that's the and. Normal English and. Both conditions have to be true. All conditions have to be true to be the compound condition to be true. It's as simple as that. So usually, just terminology, we can draw a truth table. It's called a truth table. You should be aware of it. I think your online book also mentions it. So I'm going to call it condition 1, C1. I'm only doing it for 2. I'm going to call it condition 2. And I'm going to write a compound condition with the Boolean operator and. Right? So this is called a truth table. It's telling you when will it be true and when will it be false. If my condition 1 is true and my condition 2 is true, my result is true. Like normal English. Right? If my condition 1 is true, but my condition 2 is false, the result is false. If my condition 1 is false, my condition 2 is true, the result is still false. And of course, if both my conditions are false, my answer is false. So, if you can only remember this, you're good to go. In an and, the compound condition is true if all its sub-conditions are true. That's what a compound condition is. Instead of 1, you're doing 2. Right? So, if the username is A Chawla and the password is GCA Chawla, login. They are checking both. Both have to be true. So when you log on to Blackboard, or to your computer, whatever, wherever you log in, it asks for a username and it asks for a password. Then it checks that both must be correct and it allows you to log in. If either are incorrect, it doesn't allow you to log in. There is where you will use an AND. There is an OR operator, which is called the OR Boolean operator. And it's exactly like our English OR, like we have an English OR. So if the condition 1 and condition 2. So if it is 8 a.m. or can't think of an OR with 8 a.m. Can't think of an 8 a.m. thing. Anyway, so if both conditions are true, the result is true. Either one is true. If one is true, it is still a true. If one is true, it is still a true. If both are false, then it is false. So what do you have to remember in an OR? An OR compound condition is false if all conditions are false. So remember AND one way, remember OR one way. There is only one thing to remember. And AND is true if everything is true. And OR, how do we define OR? The result is false if everything is false. So your second Boolean operator is the OR operator. Can you combine AND and OR? Of course you can. Condition 1 and condition 2 or condition 3 and condition 4. So there will be a priority again. Remember there was a priority when you did this? There was the BEDMAS rule. And so is with AND, OR, and NOT. We'll talk about the third operator that I mentioned, which is a simple operator. This simple operator only has one condition and one output, not of C1, right? Or you can say, let's write it as. So if C1 is true, not C1 is false. If C1 is false, not of C1 is true. You will say, what's the use of this operator? Sometimes you like to say, if not raining, instead of saying if raining is equal to false, which sounds better, which makes more sense, if not raining. So that's why it was introduced. Right? That's why it was introduced. That was a reason. Otherwise, you could always say if something is false, means if something is not true. So that's what the third operator is. But you can combine all three operators and do in the same compound condition. But there has to be a rule. And in Python, if I'm not mistaken, I think AND takes precedence over an OR. Give me a minute. Priority of evaluation are NOT and OR. So NOT has the highest, which is just doing a NOT of anything. Then comes and then comes OR. Right? So it's NOT and OR. Who will remember this? Google it. Nobody tells you to remember it. Right? Because it could be different in different languages. Therefore, I had to look it up. Right? So I had to look it up because it could be different in a different language. So all I do is look it up. BEDMAS is simple to remember because we've been doing BEDMAS for ages, right? Like we all know it. We don't have to look it up. But here, I had to look it up and I made a note for myself. I said the priority of evaluation are NOT and OR. So NOT comes first. Whatever is NOT will be done first. And you can always change anything by doing what? Parentheses. You can change any rule if you like. You want to do OR first instead of an AND, put your OR condition in parentheses. So evaluation can always be changed by using parentheses. Like you can do it in BEDMAS, right? If I'm writing something, if I'm writing a normal relation, if I'm writing a normal mathematical operation, I'm saying 5 multiplied by 2 plus 4, then BEDMAS will say 14, right? But I can always do this. 2 plus 4 is 6 and 6 into 5 is a 30. You can change evaluation. And so you can change evaluation in compound conditions. Otherwise, the rule is NOT and OR. Okay. So now let's learn how to, okay, I'll give you a break. Let's now learn how to write a compound. So our next job will be compound conditions. So let's see when you come back as to if I can do a little bit of more compound conditions and then I'll give you your
in maths. Okay, it won't be difficult at all from what you've done last week. Take a break of 20 minutes. It's 9:15 according to my watch. Be back by 9:35. Whenever you have a problem like this, there is a place in college in the E building in the basement where you can always loan a laptop for a day. E building. Sure you can, right? Guys, I think it's E0 something, so it's in the basement, right? So if you go to the E building, you go there. It's called the Media Services. Library, but library won't lend it. This you can borrow it, right? So you can say, can I take it for a day or 2 hours or whatever? But then you'll have to install Python yourself. That's the problem. So if problems like this you know about it, so please see that you arrange it before you come to class. Okay? You're welcome.
Do you mind if I start the lab early? Just 'cause I could be at work. Pretty familiar with everything else.
I haven't written it, but here is what I'm expecting students to do. Input 2 numbers from the user. Could be any numbers, right? Could be float or X. And then do the 4 operations: addition, multiplication, division, and all. With proper input, proper count messages, comments, output, and everything. That's what I'm expecting.
So just
this, but input 2 numbers, so they'll know how to convert it, right? And then
do
print in
you
messages.
want them inputted each time an operation occurs, or once?
No, once, and then all 4 operations with proper output messages, right? And your comments and everything. So all operators, number 1, number 2, right? Doesn't matter. Or for this, we'll leave the if statement. So everything, number 1 plus number 2, number 1 minus multiplication, doesn't matter. Division matters, modulus matters, right? And the numbers could be anything, floating or real. So let's see what happens with modulus, okay?
I just downloaded and installing the same thing. Robert. Same as you.
Yes.
Coding different style is showing something next level.
Okay, let's see here. Read here. What does it say?
Just syntax.
Okay. Take this if and move it back to column number 1. See, why is it saying this? This if is starting from column number 4. Okay, now this if is related to this else. Should work.
So every time else and if has to start from the first.
Yes, because if you started it from 4, it meant that if statement was under something else, right?
Still living. Still thinking so far. Stick it back.
Does anybody has a sheet of paper, spare sheet of paper?
Why? No, we're not. Right, you can go, well, you can go. No, yeah, so I have to stay here after school. You better wake up early. Nobody's there. There's a good life for someone. No, me and the trainers. Come in 24 hours.
There's a crazy. It's like it's before we at 1:30.
There's always somebody there. Plus I have a shower, plus I have, sauna. You have everything? Yeah. It's like a skin. Wet sauna. It's dry. Yeah, cross. That's what it is. They have one. Small one though, and if you show up at noon, you'll see ball sandwich. Any questions? No, it's nice. I'm paying $46 a month. Anyway. I'm thinking of changing to my town center because apparently it opens up at midnight.
You can just run anything on the fly. So the window opened, it ran, but you don't know where it went, right? Have you installed Idle on your machine?
830 social solution 3090. Well, it's every day anyway. That way, you call it anytime, you call it card number. Must be keeper room, I remember, right.
Let's just like 500.
Look, we're in anybody but.
So I haven't installed it. That's not even in your database. So I would recommend you to uninstall 500 before this one. Install install the system. When you install it, there is a checkbox that says included in my variables. In my check it, and then we can run it. For now, okay, so what you're going to do, just stop on the motion.
Get her done.
Other than that,
That's fine, I did have my, communications.
yeah.
Oh my God, sure.
Okay,
You would
tomorrow
love
we
my
see our communication, and then it's garbage.
Like, okay, so he gave us a book that we have to follow. Okay? It's this big, it's nothing. You only have to read, four chapters, and then he gave us all the tests. Everything's available, you can do it all from home if you want. Really? You'll just lose 5 marks or 8 classes, which is fine.
Yeah.
So funny. You want, if you read like one of the chapters, it literally tells you you got the right wording sentences to edit your stuff. Make sure you write content. Go on Wix, create a free website. Send it to him and hasta mañana. He's a fun guy. He's like a chubby, happy guy. I told you what my first assignment was, right? My class assignment. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? It reminds me of Family Guy. Don't say screw your wife. Don't say screw your wife. Don't say screw your wife. Screwing your son. I love that one. Chris doesn't pay attention to class. That's a very simple one. Chris would like Lahawi. I like one. So fun, but silly fun. There's no like complex information. And it's literally like with that future Watch it. Plus Facebook's been ruining it. No, it's a good one.
No, it's I don't know, it's moving from Marvel.
Do you know anything about the Marvel universe? Like how Thanos is supposed to be? Thanos.
Oh, okay.
Well, I didn't kind of tell you they did a fantastic job. They made him better than he was. A little overhyped. Everybody made it sound like it's such a fantastic
But they get like one thing and then
It was okay. But
yeah,
I'll give it a 7. I have to give them a 7 because those are broken. You don't have to discuss. You've seen half of those films yourself. And they did a very good iteration of like the cultural clothing.
Yeah, but it's
That's what I asked him. So I've heard it all my life. One of my best friends does
We'll have to do this after class.
Okay, guys, let's start. Let's start. Yes. Give me a minute. See if you've done everything, because I don't want you to miss any and then say afterwards. Okay, guys, so you'll have to give me time after class. Okay, I can't in between. You'll have to pick up the 3.6.5, the latest one. Okay, and the 64-bit one. Okay, guys, now what we are going to do is this. We have two options. It's hard. There's almost an hour plus 10 minutes. So I'll do the compound conditions. I've done it with you. Hopefully everything is clear, right? We'll do the compound conditions. We'll get many times to do the compound conditions. This is what I want you to do right now. You have to take two numbers from the user with proper prompt messages. Two numbers means any two numbers, positive, negative, integers, floats. So definitely you will convert it into a float and work with it, because it will also work on it. You can give 12, 12 becomes 12.4, right? So you'll convert them into floats, and then I want you to do all mathematical operations with it. Plus, minus, multiplication, integer division, float, and modulus. Now the question is, can I do modulus, remainder operator with two floats? We'll have to look at that. Can I do the integer division with two floats? Look at that. See if the two inputs are floats, does it work or not? So it's your job to do whatever. If you cannot do it, give a message on the screen, it cannot be done, right? Because two numbers could be anything. So if I say two numbers, you will assume what? Floats. So I'm looking for proper prompt messages. Please input number 1, we did it today. Please input number 2, we did it today. You know how to declare variables. I want to see comments. We did commenting today. And these are the arithmetic operators all listed here. Which will work, which won't work, I have no clue. You find out, can I do modulus with floating point numbers? Because if I haven't mentioned anything, input is floating numbers. The 2 slashes is for integer division. So what will happen when I take two floats and do integer division? And then I want, so two numbers, the same two numbers, all operations with it, all results. The sum of this and this is. The difference between this and this is. The division of, so give me proper answers. And now I want to see my output like I have shown it to you. I want to see my output as if I don't know what the two numbers are, right? And you will always do this. Number 1 plus number 2, number 1 minus number 2, number 1 multiplied. In multiplication and addition, it doesn't matter, but it matters in subtraction and division. So number 1 minus number 2, doesn't matter who is greater, who is smaller. Number 1 divided by number 2, number 1 modulus number. All operations, number 1 is number 1 and number 2 is number 2. You have 1 hour and 10 minutes to complete it. After you complete it, if I can mark it in class, sure, that's fine. I'll come and see if it works. That's all I'm interested in, right? And once you're done, on Blackboard, there is a link under assignments. I've created a link under in-class assignments, ICA 1 arithmetic with numbers. You will click on it and you will submit your .py file on Blackboard, right? So that's all you will do. So you will just submit, you name it this way, okay? So that I can understand who it is. So you will submit the file. So your name will come in it. And then you can call it whatever you like. Maybe arithmetic. Right? So your name means your name, not the word your name. You know what I mean? I want your name on it so that I can recognize you on Blackboard. So let's do an italics here. So that's your name, and then just kind of go arithmetic. You can call it whatever you like, and submit that file on Blackboard for me. Is the assignment clear? Now, this assignment is an individual assignment. You will work on it individually, right? And I just noticed this, you just came after the break, right? I'm letting you do it this time. If you're not in class at the beginning of the class, you're not in class. Got me? I'll put this up on announcements. The class starts at 8, and after 8:05, there are no admissions in my class. I don't care whether there is an in class or there is not an in class. You're not coming to my class. If you can't be disciplined, that's how it is. It's not an online course. But if you're coming to class, you come on time. You're most welcome. Right? So here is your assignment. You will work on it individually. You can think of it as an exam you're doing. You can Google whatever you like. You can Google about division and modulus and how to convert into float, whatever you like. But I need comments in your code, including name, date, and purpose added. Including you, not only that, including that should be there, and other comments that you need. I need to get good prompt messages for input. Please input number 1. And I want to see complete and clear output messages. I've demonstrated all of this in class. Right? I've demonstrated all of this in class. Anything is missing, you lose marks. So you start working on it. If you have issues, you call me and I tell you, oh, try doing this, try doing this. You finish it. If you can show it to me running in class, good. I'll mark you. I'll let you know what's wrong or what's right. And then you're free to go when you're done. Okay? So what I'm passing around now, or what I'll do is, I'm going to take attendance as you sit in class right now. And this will come around. And so you put your name on it. Just your name as it appears on Blackboard, so that I can search for you. Be careful about it, please. Right? So no nicknames, no short names, nothing. So that I know you were present in class and that you're eligible for this in-class assignment. Okay? You work individually and there is no talking or discussing as you do this assignment. You can, of course, ask me questions. Are we ready to see yours, Rick? Are you calling me?
Yeah, there were a couple of that.
Coding by number. What about 2 lines and single line? What about me? Yeah, so when I say both, this is the institution, this is the institution, and this is. Now you be careful that all your messages must be divided. You won't start with that. The other notification, working fine. Exactly. Something wrong. Yeah, it will give you the remainder is an explanation. Why? Because in this case it is equal, because when I subtract something, that's what is left, and of course when I divide it, so you can just double check that it is working with the numbers and it is satisfied. So the comments and all that, I look at the code after. Whether you commented it and so on.
Yeah, so this I just put like title comments because you know what multiplication.
So please be careful that grammatically your output should be grammatically correct. I hope you know grammar, English grammar, right? Sentences start with caps, there should be no spelling mistakes. And again, the output must be clear. The sum of 5 and 6 is 11. I want to see complete output messages. I don't know what the inputs were. Right? So double check that too, Rick. I've said complete and clear output messages, which I've demonstrated in class. Okay, so what I'm doing is what I'm expecting. Okay, let's go. Yeah, because you're missing the plus. So please work independently. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. You have to take input to numbers and do math with it. My aim is you double check. What happens in integer division when I work with 2 floats? What does it do? What happens with modulus when I do it? And I want to see messages like the difference of this and this is this.
Or you can, instead of in English, you can do something like this also. You can kind of write them as this also. For example, you can write it like this: 4 plus 5 is equal to 9. And then you can just put a heading results. Right? So it will say results. Even this will do. Right? Then you can say 4 minus 5 is equal to minus 1. Even these are clear. So you can show me results like this mathematically, or you can show it in English, the sum of this and this, whatever makes sense to you. Even here, it's quite clear. See, this is my first number, 4 plus 5 is equal to 9, 4 minus 5 is equal to minus 1, 4 into 5 is equal to 20. However you want to show the results, please be neat and clean. Now, what about when you see the real numbers? You will notice when you work with floats, sometimes your answer could be something like 4.9267, a big one. If you want for bonus marks, look up, oh, what if I only want to show 2 places after decimal? My number is looking very untidy. I want to round it off. If you do anything extra, put a note for me. I looked up how to round numbers and show the good result. I don't want to see something like 1.66666666. You could round it and make it 1.67. You know what I mean? So anything bonus you do, put a note for me so that I check it you've done it. Now guys, you're working independently. I won't repeat it. All I'll do is I'll take your name and I'll put a 0 in front of your assignment. That's all I'll do. So it's not rocket science. Look it up. You have resources. You're doing just math with 2 numbers. But what happens with floating point numbers when you do integer division or modulus on it, I don't think it's a big deal. You can always look it up. Okay? Are we good? Do we understand the expectations? No exchanging of code, nothing. It's not a big thing. When I say take 2 numbers, user can give any. So what will be your better bet? You will just take the 2 and convert them into floats, because they could be either ints and or floats. Then you will say, what if the user enters an int? Then if the user enters an int and you convert it into float, that will work too. The 12 will become a 12.2, which is fine. Right? Therefore, it's safer, not safer, it is correct to convert them into floats, not to ints. Right? So if nothing is mentioned, the numbers are numbers, they can be floats. So again, start filling it and then pass it on. So your attendance sheet is going around. Please see that your name comes on it. What happened? Maybe because they don't allow you to install anything at all on their own computers. Could be. Okay, so what is your best bet now? Your bet is that you start at least typing in Notepad or TextPad, whatever they have, right? And once you have it, then you can at least double check on somebody else. But you write your own. Right? Make sense? I think they're not allowing you to install anything on computers at the college. Yes, for the same thing. So you will take 2 numbers at a time and you will do all arithmetic operations on that. You won't ask for every time over which 2 numbers only. Do addition on them, subtraction on them, multiplication, whatever, all the arithmetic operators that are mentioned on the blackboard. Same 2 numbers. When you do an integer division, but it's a mixed expression, you're taking float integers, so the result will be.
Yes, what I'm saying is this should be determined because it's trying to return a whole number here. So whether it's 0.0 or is 0, it's not a whole number again, this expression.
Yeah, that's not a whole expression, so the answer will be a float.
Yes. Yeah.
But is it doing the right result or not? Is what so what happens in float division when you research it? What happens in float division when you use a double dash?
So
4.5 becomes a 4 and 5.6 becomes a 5. Is that what it is doing? And the answer is 0, which is right. What do you think?
I think so because you combine yeah, how it is.
I don't know. Yeah.
I haven't researched on integer division or floating point numbers yet.
Well, yeah, the point of the double slash is to return a whole number, right, rather than fractional or compound number. So with this,
No,
there is a whole number.
Yeah, and no, the answer, the integer division doesn't say I will return. Yeah, I know what you're saying, that the answer should be an integer. But because it is a mixed expression, which is the answer 0.0 is okay. It's fine.
Yeah, yes, no, I get that. What I'm saying it should be 0. It shouldn't be anything greater than the number that it's returning less than 0.
If you try to do 14.5 divided by 5, I can divide something. Something like that. We'll get an answer. Yep, that's right. So you wanted, yeah, you wanted an anything that's fractional. Yes. So you double check what happens in integer division and what happens in modulus. And when I say take two numbers, those two numbers can be floats. So should I be converting them to floats, or when I take them to floats, of course? Give me a minute. Just go by my name, Anju Chawla. Look for Anju Chawla. And then I just saw it from here. There it is. Click on it here. Okay, so now in this one, you have the Tuesday section. The last week I did record it, so see it in the Wednesday section. The last week, yeah. Yes. But why is your menu not telling me the biggest thing? Oh, there it is. Okay. So now what do you want to do? Write a new program? Go to file. Yeah, so you go to file now. File, here, file. The file now. Oh, so you're there. Then so start writing your program. You were in class too, right? You missed last class, not this source. You have this comments. You have this comments. You make a name and you make the suffix and comments. That will be the logic, not in comments. So comments means this is comments. Right? Comments is what comments. Okay? So you can write it either way. You can say may something, you can write it slash or whatever. That's comments. So anything that starts with a hash. Any line that starts with a hash. Okay, are we complete in all our attendance here? Everybody on the sheet? Everybody is there on the sheet? Okay, good. That's exactly what it is. Take two numbers and do all arithmetic operations. Take two numbers and do all arithmetic operations with it. I said perform all arithmetic operations. And you work independently and don't ask silly questions, right? If it's clear, it's clear. Yes. No, we have to write a program. We write a Python program. Okay? We are not doing it on interactive shell. We are writing a Python program. I thought that was understood, but if it is not understood, is that clear? It's a Python program I'm looking for, not interactive shell. You write a program with .py extension. How will I see your interactive shell? I have no clue. Okay, keep in mind it's time bound. Anything that works till 11 a.m. is what you submit. And it can be done. It will not take more than half hour. I've given you 1 hour and 10 minutes. I should have stopped the forecast. And again, please,